to another episode of the Life's Playbook podcast. This is season 3, episode 10 of the show. I am your host, Quinn Jackson. I'm joined today by my co-host, Noah Hawley. We're going to be recapping both the men's and women's national championships. Having said that, let's dive into today's episode. Before we get started with today's episode, download Prize Picks, the most elite sports fantasy app. Want a chance to show off your sports intelligence? With that being said, let's get into today's episode. Starting with the ladies' national championship, which was this past Sunday between UConn and South Carolina. Obviously, I was rocking with South Carolina. My co-host Noah was rocking with UConn. And that was, when I tell you that was a blowout, that was a blowout on all cylinders. So let's talk about it. Noah, let's hear from you first, since you had UConn winning this one.
Watch the women's basketball. I'm not going to say I'm not into it, but, I don't watch women's basketball. Strong for the UConn Huskies. She put up a double-double, 15 rebounds, and 24 points. So she left everything out there on the court in that national championship game. Good job to both teams. I'm not going to say South Carolina didn't deserve it because they were the 1 seed. UConn just dominated as they were seen to do this game.
Yeah, it was very, very, very unexpected. I was rocking with the number 1 seed, South Carolina, and South Carolina just looked like they weren't ready to play in a national championship game, which is odd. I thought they were going to come in here and make it close, and they didn't. There were only 2 players on South Carolina's team that had double-digit points, and they came off the bench. That is crazy. That is crazy. Yes, only 2 players scored over double-digit points for South Carolina, and they came off the bench. So me personally, I am flabbergasted by the performance that they put on Sunday. Wasn't expecting it at all. But UConn, they're a great program. Both the men's and the women's basketball programs, they're great. They are blue bloods, both the men and women's programs at basketball, so I got to give them credit where it's due. So congrats to them. They are the 2025 women's basketball national champions. I was wrong in choosing South Carolina, but I think South Carolina will be back next year. I think they'll be back and hopefully play like a number 1 seed next year. But no doubt in my mind, both these teams will see each other in the future. Moving on to the men's national championship, which was last night at 8:50. The Gators versus the Cougars. I'm gonna start first, since I had Florida coming out of that one. And to be honest, I could sit up here and boast the entire episode about how right I was in the Gators pick. But to be honest, after watching that game from start to finish, the Gators did not play that well. Yes, the Gators did not play that well, if I'm being honest. Again, they showed up late in the second half. I'll say that much. They showed up late in the second half to come back and win the championship, but they really didn't play. If you watch the game from start to finish, despite what the overall score is, you'll know that the Gators did not play that well, really at all. In the first half, they did everything that I told them not to do. Turnovers, got destroyed in the paint. It seemed like they were getting blocked every possession. It was a disaster, and it really wasn't, again, up until like the final few minutes of the second half that the Gators turned it up. But it wasn't great. But congrats to them. I'm not going to be too harsh on their performance because I was rocking with them to win, but they did get the job done. Heavily disappointed in Walter Clayton Jr. in his performance. Heavily disappointed in him. He showed up at the end, like the very end of the game, but like the entire first half and like most of the second half, the dude was nowhere to be seen. But again, props to the Cougars because they did game plan for him. But Noah, let's hear it from you on this championship.
Yeah, man. The game went. I'm not gonna say as expected, but so far from like what we said, Florida was laxative. They did not put up in at all in the first half. The the 16-minute mark is when the game really started turning for the Houston Cougars. I'm sorry, but yeah, overall, the bigs for Houston, they didn't really show up. There's you said they were physically, I said they were physically dominant, but looking at the stats, the bigs only combined for 8 plus 6, 14 points. So yeah, they're big men. They didn't really show up tonight, and only no, none of the players on the Houston team put up double-digit numbers. And for the Gators, they had 3 players. Florida turned it around in the second half because they're a second half team, and that game came down to free throws. Florida is that free throw shooting team. I think, hang on, they were 81% from the free throw line. So, that's a mistake made by Houston leading to that loss. Florida took the game from them, man. It came down to the 2 minutes. No, not a lot of points were being scored for Houston. Last time Houston scored in that game, and then 37 came down to a steal from the Florida Gators, and that ended that championship run for that team. So props to both teams. Good job to Florida. I was wrong.
Yeah, it was definitely definitely it came down to the wire. Shout out to Houston because they really did a great job, really throughout the entire first half and a majority of the second half. Obviously, the very end of the game was very heartbreaking for Houston fans. So let's talk about that a little bit. Final couple seconds of the game, Houston was clearly going for the win in that game. Time was running out. They were opting for a three. They were clearly going for the win in that game. And number 21, Sharp double dribbled on the final seconds of the half. And honestly, I mean, I feel bad for him for a sense because that's going to haunt him for the rest of his days. But at the same time, I mean, if you go back and watch those final couple seconds, he probably could have drawn a foul off of that shot, because everybody was converging. Everyone from Florida was converging onto him, so he probably could have flopped his way to shooting 3 free throws, and of course he would have had to make at least 3, if not 2 minimum. But I mean, he in and of himself played well. He had 8 points, 3 rebounds. Not a bad night. Played almost 40 minutes, but man, that was just a crucial mistake. Double dribbling. He should have just, even if he had just thrown it up there, he probably still could have drawn a foul. But man, crucial mistake in the final seconds of the game. Noah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so for Houston, if you want to in these close games, you want to score as much as you can, especially when the time is running out. You want to put up those shots, and nothing was falling for Houston. And turnovers kill, bro. You can't make those turnovers in that last second. But yeah, hey, Emmanuel Sharp, don't let that haunt you, bro. If it do, hey, like in football, you gotta have memory loss. This is what my coaches always would tell me. So yeah, just have that memory loss. Come back stronger next year.
Yeah, it was, feel bad for him because there was quite a bit that he could have done. He probably could have gotten a foul out of that. Even if he just threw up a shot, he probably could have gotten a foul out of that in some way. Granted, he would have had to make all 3 free throws to win the game, if not make 2 to tie it. But and going back to the turnover thing, as you were saying, um, as a team, and again, we gotta go back to the Gators because I told them they can't have this. And as a team, Florida, I think they finished the night with like 13 turnovers. I know they had way more than Houston as a team collectively, but it really wasn't a good performance in the first half by Florida. So I'm not gonna sit up here and get all boastful about it because it really wasn't that great of a performance by Florida. But they got the job done, and Houston was a great team, and they shut down Florida's best man that night in Walter Clayton. Um, Again, heavily disappointed in Clayton. Man, he 11 points, and I had him on my lineup. 11 points, and I had him on my lineup. And dude did not deliver. Bro went scoreless the entire first half. Not a single point in the entire first half. But man, he showed up. He hit some crucial shots in the end, but heavily disappointed in that man right there. Heavily disappointed in that man right there. Sold my lineup and everything, but he's a national champion, so I got to give it to him. Got to give it to Houston. They pretty much game planned for Walter Clayton, and they did just that. So I got to give it to Houston. That much, great team, but congrats to the Gators for being the 2025 men's national champions. Um, what what are you looking forward? Noah, do you see these two teams possibly being back in, maybe not both back in the national championship game, but maybe being back in similar seeding next year's March Madness?
As a one seed, no. Maybe for Florida, because Florida does have a historic basketball roster, just as well as a football roster. So Florida could be one of those teams, but as for Houston, not really. Unless they can repeat what they did this year. They can pick up some talent in the off season. But if not, I don't really see it happening for Houston.
Yeah, I agree with you there for the most part. I think Florida for the most part will be back, and Houston for the most part will be back. Maybe not as one seeds like you said, but they'll most likely be back in a similar situation next year. So, with that being said, this has been season 3, episode 10. Yes, I made a mistake after watching after listening to the last episode that was episode 9. This is episode 10, season 3, episode 10 of the Life's Playbook podcast. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of both national championship games and both teams' performances. With that being said, we'll catch you guys Thursday for season 3, episode 11. Till then, peace out.